Hey guys, it's 7:39 on December 30th, 2017, and as you can probably tell, I've been sick for the last couple weeks, but I'm getting better, and I started digging back into this robot thing and listening to some of these different talks by guys like this, Sam Harris, and this is actually an older one from 2015, and what I wanted to do was share with you some of my thoughts, especially just the very first few minutes of what he talks about here. This is a 2 hour and 47-minute podcast, but I literally only need to get 3 minutes in to start, waving the red flags and saying, hold on, guys, there's a big problem here. Because here's the thing. This guy, Sam Harris, is one of the many, like Elon Musk's and Ben Gertzel and some of the other folks that are considered icons in this field of artificial intelligence, and people are very much valuing their input in the field of artificial intelligence. And as I've investigated and others are finding, they all have a very peculiar philosophy. They're obviously not biblical at all, or I don't think they'd be involved in this field at all, but it's very easy to pick up the failure of their logic if you slow down what they're telling us without any biblical knowledge whatsoever. You don't have to be a Christian to hear what I'm going to tell you and point out what the flaw is in this guy's reasoning. And I don't think that it's by accident that all these guys have some very occultic, anti-God, fundamentally flawed, esoteric philosophy in how they view life and intelligence. So let me just play the first part of this. What he's talking about is him having gone to a conference down in Puerto Rico where they had some guys talking about artificial intelligence. And what surprised him, as he points out here, is that on the outside of this conference, people were still talking about AI as being 50 to 100 years in the future. And yet, to his surprise, people like Elon Musk in this conference were talking about 5 to 10 years off in the future. And like I said, this was from 2015. So let's just take a listen to the first few minutes of this so I can share my thoughts with you.
And what was interesting there is that what I heard outside this conference, and what you hear, let's say, on edge.org or in general discussions about the prospects of making real breakthroughs in artificial intelligence, you hear a time frame of 50 to 100 years before anything terribly scary or terribly interesting is going to happen. In this conference, that was almost never the case. Everyone who was still trying to ensure that they were doing this as safely as possible was still conceding that a time frame of 5 or 10 years admitted of rather alarming progress. And so when I came back from that conference, the edge question for 2015 just happened to be on the topic of AI, so I wrote a short piece distilling what my view now was. Perhaps I'll just read that. It won't take too long, and hopefully it won't bore you. Can we avoid a digital apocalypse? It seems increasingly likely that we will one day build machines that possess superhuman intelligence. We need only continue to produce better computers, which we will unless we destroy ourselves or meet our end some other way.
Okay, so right out of the box, at the very beginning, he says that it's likely that we're going to build something that's superhuman intelligence. Now, I'm not going to argue because I have a biblical foundation that says that there is going to be something that gives life to a beast system. Okay, so from a biblical perspective, I think that this is probably something that could very possibly fill the expectation that's set forth in the book of Revelation. Okay, but that's not where these guys are coming from. So let's put aside the book of Revelation and not use my biblical worldview here and just look at the basic concept of what they're actually talking about, okay? Because the assumption is being made, and this is a critical assumption, that we are going to build, human beings are going to build something that will function with intelligence. You guys, this to me seems like a question we really ought to be asking on a very fundamental level. Is this even possible? Okay? I would argue, again, I'll pull back and grab the book of Revelation again. I will argue that no, it's not possible. We cannot do this. This is not even a possible function. It's not, man cannot give life to something that is inanimate. We have never seen anything go from inanimate to animate. And the fact that this conversation is not only taking place, but now it's taking place with expectations that it's going to happen in the next 2.5 years, 3 years. Wait a minute. This is like we're suddenly going to see evolution be proven true? Nobody's slowing down and saying, hold on a second, what do you mean life? And okay, they call it intelligence. They call it artificial intelligence. But as you'll hear in a second, there's no distinguishing artificial intelligence from something that's alive, guys. Let's just hear how he describes it.
We already know that it's possible for mere matter to acquire, quote, general intelligence.
Okay, so he says we already know, okay, which means we must have been able to have proven it before, that mere matter can acquire intelligence. Before you go through and listen to the rest of his speech, what exactly do you think he's going to be presenting here? Because when I first heard this, I couldn't think of anything, anywhere, where mere matter has acquired intelligence. I've never experienced that. I've never seen it proven in a laboratory. My computer certainly, it doesn't qualify for that. My computer is nothing more than a series of processors and memory banks that are programmed to do what I tell it to do. It does not have its own animation, cognition. It does not have intelligence on its own, okay? And as I pointed out in other videos, there is no differentiating, intelligence or cognitions from life. Okay, so what exactly is he talking about? That we already know it's possible for quote-unquote mere matter to acquire intelligence. Maybe he's talking about plants. Plants that can develop some genetic resistance of, to certain kinds of predators or something. Maybe that's what he's talking about. No, that's not what he's talking about. Let's listen.
The ability to learn new concepts and employ them in unfamiliar contexts. Because the 1,200 cc's of salty porridge inside our heads has managed it.
Oh, so he's using the example of our brains, which he conveniently calls 100 and 1,200 cc's of porridge. You guys, that's disgusting, first of all. My brain feels like it might be porridge right now because I'm not feeling well. But seriously, our lives, our brains, they're not porridge. They're not, quote-unquote, mere matter. Okay, and this is where I say guys like Ben Goertzel, Sam Harris, Elon Musk, all of these big pioneers in this artificial intelligence horizon we have ahead of us are like skyscraper architects starting in the middle of the building. And somebody like me is walking down the street and saying, hey guys, you have a huge hole in the foundation you're building. So let's listen to this. Because he's just told us that we know that matter can acquire and use intelligence. And the evidence for that is our brain. Well, I say to you that that's a flawed example. Because when our brain no longer has life in it, it doesn't use that intelligence anymore. Decapitate somebody and then ask them to recite the alphabet. Okay? You don't have, your brain is still fresh and alive for like the first 2 or 3 minutes after decapitation. Why don't you go interview a genius after you decapitate him, like 10 minutes afterwards? Keep his brain in homeostasis and see how well he answers the question, what's 1 + 1? You see, our brain is not just mere matter that has acquired intelligence. Without the life that's in that body, that matter is nothing. Okay? And that's something that these guys completely fail to incorporate into their thinking. And they're selling it to us as if there is no value to the life variable when it comes time to intelligence. They're making this humongous assumption. They're making this humongous leap that intelligence can exist without life. Now, I say again, from my biblical perspective, I can argue that, well, it's the life that's going to be given to the beast that's going to make it speak. It's not the intelligence, okay? And without life, there is no intelligence. So what are these guys actually arguing? Are they arguing that life isn't necessary? Are they arguing that a brain can function to acquire intelligence without life in it? I mean, that's essentially what they're pushing. It's a scary thought.
There's no reason to believe that a suitably advanced digital computer couldn't do the same.
Yeah, there actually is. That the suitable advanced computer doesn't have any life in it. And that's the very basis of this foundation of the questions that I'm saying are missing. These are the gaps in the foundation of this edifice they're building. You know, you can build this super fast computer and consider it intelligent, but if it doesn't have life in it, it's not going to be animated. And yet that's what he says. There's no reason to think it couldn't be. And I'm saying, okay, why don't you give us some evidence of anything that has been intelligent without life in it? Nothing. Nothing. And if you take the life out of something that is intelligent, show us where it retains its intelligence.
It's often said that the near-term goal is to build a machine that possesses, quote, human-level intelligence. But unless we specifically emulate a human brain, with all its limitations, this is a false goal. The computer on which I'm writing these words already possesses superhuman powers of memory and calculation. It also has potential access to most of the world's information. Unless we take extraordinary steps to hobble it.
Hobble it. Let's just articulate and substantiate what you mean by hobble it. You mean give it life. There's a little bit more to it than hobbling those qualities. You have to animate it. You have to give it life. And so far, I don't think science has ever been able to give life to something that wasn't alive.
Any future artificial general intelligence, known as AGI, will exceed human performance on every task for which it is considered a source of intelligence in the first place. Whether such a machine would necessarily be conscious is an open question.
Well, it's an open question that's actually probably the most important question here. Is can any pooled pile of data be intelligent without consciousness? And I say no. I'd say show any example in any time, in anything in ever existence, in anything on record, in the entire human existence, that shows that something that is inanimate with intelligence can become conscious and intelligent and exercise it without life. It's impossible. So this is all just based on a very bad foundation, a very bad theory. And to me, this starts sounding a lot more like religion. Even though this guy likes to consider himself a critic of religion, this is very religious. This is very spiritual. This has a lot of anti-biblical, forget the authority of God, forget the authority of our own observational experience in life, which is what some of these atheists love to cling to. If they can't observe it, it's not real. But I mean, there does. This is supposedly science, right? Isn't there some criteria of some demonstration of the theory being plausible?
But conscious or not, an AGI might very well develop goals incompatible with our own.
Okay, so let's just talk about how intelligence, something that's in matter, let's just say, again, we'll use the example of a brain that exists in a living human, and then let's take out that life. So then we're just talking about this dead brain that was very, very intelligent 10 minutes ago. Let's show any example where we can get that dead brain to express volition or intention and get it functioning again. Because that's basically what he's talking about. We don't have to build a system. We've already got one. Just decapitate any smart person. And let's see. Let's plug it in and see. Is that thing going to start living again? Is it going to start being, general intelligent? They're just completely forgetting the variable of life as the plug into which all brains must be plugged to function.
Just how sudden and lethal this parting of the ways might be is now a subject of much colorful speculation.
Yeah, much colorful speculation where we've got the artificial intelligence apocalypse upon us. Well, it may actually really happen, but not because we're able to build the system. Because we don't even need to build a system. We have lots of dead people. We can just go ahead and take their brains. They're smarter than any computer we've ever built. So the only way we're going to have artificial intelligence apocalypse is if we have the spirit of life that's brought back into it. Something has to be put into this pile of intelligence. It requires life. And the fact that these guys are not even considering that variable is what is just made me dig myself out from underneath tons of Kleenexes. to point out that at this very foundation, 4 minutes and 2 seconds in to whatever this guy has to say, he's already operating on completely flawed premises.
So just to make things perfectly clear here, all you have to grant to get your fears up and running is that we will continue to make progress in hardware and software design unless we destroy ourselves some other way, and that there's nothing magical about the wetware we have running inside our heads.
There's nothing magical about the wetware we have inside our heads. You guys, did you just hear that? You have to grant that humans are going to continue to build really big and fast computers. And, as he said, you have to be willing to grant that there's nothing magical about the wetware that's going in our heads. And I say, sorry guys, but there's something really magical. We call it life. And without it, all the hardware, all the software in the entire world is not going to produce AGI. It's not. So back to my point. If this AGI system, this quote-unquote beast that we're building, does come to life, it's not going to be because we've built it. It's going to be because, I think it's Revelation 15, life is given unto it. And these guys might like to pretend that there's, no magic to it. But there is. It's called life. And that magic, it comes from God. It's the spirit of life. It's given to us. It's the breath of life. Now, there is one waiting in the wings. There is a life that's waiting in the wings. We call them demons. Okay? They do not possess bodies. We're told this by the authority of Scripture. And that's another thing. These guys never seem to confront the authority of Scripture. If these guys could debunk the authority of Scripture, this would be a completely different discussion. But see, these guys just like to ignore Scripture.
And that an intelligent machine could be built of other material. Once you grant those two things, which I think everyone who has thought about the problem will grant. I can't imagine a scientist not granting that, one, we're going to make progress in computer design unless something terrible happens, and two, that there's nothing magical about biological material.
See, that's what's so crazy. What scientist in their right mind is going to say there's not something magical in biological material? I will once again refer to the decapitated genius who cannot answer what 1 + 1 is 5 minutes after he's been relieved of his lower body. Life has left that brain. It's not going to work. What's the matter with these people? Can't they get that through their heads? I mean, I know I've been sick and I've had a fever and my brain hasn't worked all that great, but I honestly, I know that a decapitated brain isn't going to function anymore. And so far, humans have not been able to build a brain or a computer or anything like the brain that functions in a genius 5 minutes before he's decapitated. But you remove the life out of that genius by decapitating him and his brain isn't going to work anymore. So he doesn't think any scientist is going to argue that biological matter doesn't require something quote-unquote magical. Then obviously it's just completely flawed. It's like, I can't even say it any more clearly. If you don't have life in something, it's not intelligent anymore. The brain of a genius without life in it is completely inanimate material that doesn't function.
Where intelligence is concerned. Once you've granted those two propositions, you now will be hard-pressed to find some handhold with which to resist your slide into real concern about where this is all going. So this is where I would say that, okay, even though I don't think humans are ever going to be able to build anything that's going to have, that we can get life to come into it by itself, because we've had 2,000 years worth of scientists trying to disprove the Bible by these crazy, some way or another, non-godly theories of life, whether it's from Gnosticism or Darwin's theory of evolution. I don't know, you guys. This is just messed up. One way of glimpsing the coming risk is to imagine what might happen if we accomplished our aims and built a superhuman AGI that behaved exactly as intended. Such a machine...
Okay, so he's going to go on into this in greater depth, and I will probably bring you another video on this. But basically, let me just summarize one more time. That the foundational reason that these guys are sitting there saying, yeah, we might want to be concerned about this artificial intelligence we're building now, because if we build computers that are fast enough and there's no such thing as the magic that drives the artificial intelligence, which I'm referring to as life, then yeah, we got lots to be concerned about. I don't disagree that we have lots to be concerned about. I just disagree with the two bases for which he said we have lots to be concerned about. I say we have lots to be concerned about because I've read the book of Revelation, and I know that something is going to be given life. Is it this artificial intelligence system? I don't know. It could be. But it could also just be that this artificial intelligence system is going to be part of like a Project Blue Beam that's going to be to mislead people and give us all sorts of false, theology and lead men astray. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen here? But the idea that we can build something that's going to be living and surpass us and be like an AGI, apocalypse, no, that can't happen. What will happen, if anything like that happens, it's going to be the beast system that's been given life. And we know what happens because of the book of Revelation, but not because of what these guys are envisioning. So these guys have nothing to be concerned about, except for the Bible, which they completely disregard. So, I don't know. It's just kind of circular reasoning at this point to argue without these guys actually being able to talk back to me. But anyway, I just thought I'd share these thoughts with you and bring this to your attention. And as soon as I get better, I'm going to be really digging into this because all these things are built on religious principles. For as much as these guys try to pretend, this guy says that he's a big proponent of the liberty to criticize religion. It's funny. But he's very religious. It's a religion without any evidence. It's kind of messed up. So anyway, I thought I'd share that with you guys.